We head to the UK now, where 8 people are in custody as the investigations continue into yesterday's terror attack in London. The police have named 52-year-old British-born Khalid Masood as the man who ploughed his car into pedestrians on Westminster Bridge, then stabbed a police officer to death before being shot to death himself. A pensioner, a mother and a tourist were also killed, and more than 40 other people injured, some of them critically. Bridget Burke has the latest.
British police raided 3 houses in Birmingham, arresting 7 people following yesterday's terror attack in Westminster. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack, which saw British-born terrorist Khalid Masood zigzag across the Westminster Bridge in his rental car yesterday, mowing down pedestrians along the way. Masood was then shot and killed by police after stabbing police officer Keith Palmer to death in the parliamentary grounds. British Prime Minister Theresa May told Parliament Masood had a 20-year criminal record and had once been investigated by the MI5 for violent extremism.
To the men and women who propagate this hate and evil, you will not defeat us. Mr. Speaker, let this be the message from this House and this nation today. Our values will prevail.
36 people have been treated in hospital, where 7 remain in a critical condition.
We know that the victims include 3 French children, 2 Romanians, 4 South Koreans, 1 German, 1 Pole, 1 Irish, 1 Chinese, 1 Italian, 1 American and 2 Greeks. And we are in close contact with the governments of the countries of all those affected. The injured also included 3 police officers who were returning from an event to recognise their bravery.
The deceased includes a 75-year-old man, British mother Aisha Fraid, who was on her way to pick her 2 daughters up from school, and American man Kurt Cochran, who was on holiday in Europe with his wife Melissa to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary. Band members back in Salt Lake City describing his death as a sad day for Utah music.
He had such an uplifting way about him, you know, that it made you feel good. And yeah, it's a very, very sad day for Utah music, for anybody that knows him, you know.
Last night, hundreds of people gathered for a vigil in London's Trafalgar Square to remember the victims. MP and Home Secretary Amber Rudd paying tribute to unarmed policeman Keith Palmer, who lost his life.
I know we will all be thinking about his friends and his family. He was courageous, he was brave, and he was also doing his duty.
At Westminster Bridge, people came to lay flowers. Sebastian Gisbert's friend was injured in the attack.
The main purpose of the flowers is to remember my friend, who he's luckily alive, but I laid the flowers for those victims that died in an attack to essentially the values of this country and what we stood for hundreds of years. And despite the fears of this area being very confined, I think that everyone should give a moment to those people, and despite the fears, we're resolute to continue with our daily lives as I've done yesterday.
24 hours on, both locals and tourists describe the atmosphere as surreal.
You kind of feel a little bit dazed when you come in the morning, especially given that they closed off the entire area this morning. I had to do a massive circuit route just to get into the House of Commons where my office is. And it felt quite eerie this morning because you look out of my window, it's on the 3rd floor, and you can look right down into New Palace Yard where the incident took place yesterday, and it's completely dead. The streets around Parliament Square is completely dead. That's a very unusual situation for Thursday afternoon.
It's a bit surreal really, because it's kind of like going on as normal in lots of ways, but you can see lots of people standing about sort of taking it all in, so yeah, it's obvious something's really sort of happened here, but yeah, it's just a bit surreal because it's so quiet.
At first I was a little bit scared, but I think it's all right. The security is at max now, so I feel all right now being here.
As Theresa May pledged a thorough investigation into yesterday's attack, the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn praised the efforts of the counter-terrorism minister and former army captain Tobias Ellwood.
I want also, Mr Speaker, to express our admiration to the honourable member for Bournemouth East, whose efforts yesterday deserved special commendation. He used his skill to try and save life.
Amongst the chaotic scenes on Westminster Bridge, Mr Ellwood raced to the aid of policeman Keith Palmer and tried to administer CPR. His actions had Parliament hail him as a humble hero. For Checkpoint, Bridget Burke.